Hello all and welcome to the Footy Media Watch AFL Dreamteam Diaries podcast for the forwards. Um, Slight delay with this one, but we'll be bundling this up together with the next podcast at the same time as midfielders, so probably the two most major positions in terms of point scoring. So let's get going with the forwards, as I think they differ a little bit from the other positions in fantasy football this year, as there are a lot of mid-price options which are very attractive in 2013. And it is for that reason that I've come up with a strategy in terms of the entire team structure um, that involves grabbing 3 premium forwards, 3 mid-price players, and 2 rookies. In recent season, there's been a lot of rookies because of GWS and Gold Coast. There's still a few around with GWS this year as well, and also a couple of Gold Coast. And there seems to be a lot of A grade rookies that most people will have. But in terms of rookies for forwards, A grade rookies for midfielders, I should say, sorry. But in terms of A grade rookies for forwards, there aren't that many. So the mid price options are probably a lot better, and there are a few that I think will score very well this year. So let's go through them. We'll start with all the premiums, and then we'll go through and have a look at those crucial mid-price players that I've just mentioned there. So we'll start with Lance Buddy Franklin. Probably the lock in everyone's team. He's the Dane Swan of the forward line, and can't go past him. Most people have a rule where they don't use key forwards in fantasy football, whether it be Super Coach, Dream Team, Ultimate Footy, whichever game you choose to play. But Lance Franklin is the exception to that rule, so he should be a lock in everyone's forward line. Gets a lot of possessions, kicks a lot of goals, can give away a lot of free kicks, which in certain fantasy games, probably more Super Coach I'd say, can be a problem with his point scoring. But he more than makes up for it with the big games where he kicks 9, 10, 13 goals. A lot of marks, a lot of kicks, and even when he's inaccurate, he still scores reasonably well for that reason. So lock him in. The next set of players that I'm bringing up are interesting for their own reasons. Dean Cox as a forward. Now I've mentioned him in the ruck thing as the best ruckman in the competition, but he's also a dual position ruck forward this year, which gives some options with guys like Jared Roughhead and also Nick Natanui, I think, to use a ruckman as a forward this year. Not sure which way to go. It's probably the Cox-Natanui combination is probably better suited to Supercoach. Nick Natanui is a much better Supercoach player than Dream Teamer. But Cox Roughhead in AFL Dream Team could be a viable option and give some good cover, as it's difficult to find a cheap fourth ruckman this year. So that could give you the 4 rucks that you need. Well, the 4 rucks that would be not that you need, that are a luxury to have, as the mid-priced players that we'll see later on can more than cover any forward line options should you have to use your second ruck forward in the actual rucks. So Dean Cox could be an option as a forward. That's the long and the short of it, I guess. A long way of saying that, but don't be afraid to do it. But I would tend to keep Dean Cox as a ruck first rather than a forward and look at the other 2 I mentioned. Or even some other ruckmen such as David Hale, which we'll have a look at later, who's also classed as a forward. Paul Chapman has had many a good year as a Dream Teamer, but I think he might be on the wane slightly. And I mean, every year I'm concerned about his hamstrings, but he seems to have been pumping out a lot of games in recent years and getting through. But I think it might be time to consider looking at younger options a little bit further down. Steve Johnson, he's suspended for the first round for hitting the pest out at Fremantle. So he might be a player that you don't pick in round 1, but you can burn those trades you have to use in the first couple of rounds to do a sideways trade and bring someone else in around the same price. So, for instance, if you really wanted Stevie Johnson, you could um, have Jimmy Bartell in your team in round one, and then in round two shift in Steve Johnson. And because the prices don't change, it's you only have to keep that what is it, $9 grand up your sleeve in your salary cap. So that is a definite option. And Jimmy Bartell, I was very wary of Jimmy Bartell, mainly because I heard early on in the preseason he was still having his ongoing foot problems, but his practice match form has been excellent. Last year I had him with that injured foot all last year. He's still got 90s and 100s and 110s. He's really consistent, and some nights or days you'd be thinking, oh, he's having an average game and he's on 35, 40, and then he just explode in a quarter. So don't be. I actually think Jimmy Bartell is probably an excellent pick as a premium forward in 2013. Now the next group of players, Matthew Pavlich, I think's on the slide as a dream teamer, spending a little bit more time up forward. Still had a good year last year, but with every year he's getting on, he's probably becomes a greater risk. So give him a miss, I think. Well, I will be anyway. Dane Zorko, anyone that saw him in the NAB Cup, you couldn't deny his form, but at the same time it is only pre-season competition form. But it has carried on from his form in the main competition last year, so couldn't complain too much, and he might be a good unique for a lot of players who probably will go like myself with the next player on the list, Tommy Rockcliffe. He's been a good dream teamer for lots of years now, Tom Rockcliffe, with his other partner in crime, Redden, in the midfield. So last year he spent a little bit more time up forward, but he said in a few interviews that he's going to be spending a lot more time in midfield again this year, so it's looking good for him to consolidate his spot there as a premium midfielder and probably even rise up the ranks a little bit. Dale Thomas had an injury-riddled 2012, and looks like he's injured in the pre-season at the moment as well. So I'd steer clear of him early in the season. He might be worth one if he clicks into form a little bit later on in the season. That might be a good trade target upgrade from your rookies to a premium, as I think his price might drop a little bit earlier on in the season and may rise as the season goes on. Mitch Robinson, whilst not injured, I think is another mid-season trade up target rather than one to start the season with. I'm a bit wary just because of the change of roles that go on at Carlton, and whilst he's had a pretty good pre-season, he didn't have a good game last night in the NAB Cup, and it'd be interesting to see where the roles change, as he had a bit more leeway seemingly under Brent Ratton, but be interesting to see whether that role changes much under Mickey Malthouse as the season pans out and the real game starts. So I'm going to watch him for the first 5 or 6 rounds, see where he's at, then maybe add him to the watch list as a trade target. And then Jared Ruffhead, as mentioned before, ruck forward, could be a good option for that dual position strategies. And next to the players, Paddy Ryder with Jared Ruffhead, Dean Cox, mid forward ruck, worth looking at. Jordan Lewis, Hawthorn. That's an interesting price point for Jordan Lewis. Really tempting to bring him in. He can get really good scores, but I'm a bit worried with the pre-seasons, looking at both Hawthorn and Sydney, that they're a little bit behind. And with Hawthorn's tough start to the season, the first 5 weeks, his price might actually go down, and he might be a great pickup around about round 7 or 8, I think. So I'm not going to go with him at the start, but at that price, you think at the end of the year he'd be around about that price, maybe even a little bit more. So you couldn't go wrong. So if you need an extra 40 grand or something, you don't want to go for one of the top premiums. Definitely a great option, I think. Jared Waite. A lot of Carlton my Carlton friends talk him up, and I was speaking to him the other day, and I said, "You do know he's 30," and they're a little bit, and they didn't believe me, and then we had a look, and he's 30 years old, and it's kind of like the time for potential and stuff has gone past. He's got to produce now, or he's never going to produce, and he's injured again. So yeah, I'm going to pass and Jerry Waite, and especially at that price, he's way over. He's way over what he can produce for a season. You won't get any more than 14 games out of him, I wouldn't think, and probably maybe 8 good ones. So give that a miss. Brendan Whitecross, be interesting to see where he goes at Hawthorn. The Hawthorn midfield is ageing a bit, so they're kind of relying on these ones underneath like Brendan Whitecross to give them some good backup. With Sewell and Hodge, Mitchell all getting on. As a forward, Brendan Whitecross could play a lot more in the midfield, so he could be good value there, but I'm still... He's one of those players, whilst you know he's a good player, you probably don't jump on board straight away because you're not convinced just how good they are. So I might just watch him this season, I think, and see where he's at and make my decision in future seasons. So I'll give him a miss this year, but he's definitely a player worth keeping an eye on. Brent Harvey going to miss the first few weeks with suspension, so have a look at him. He's probably more of a crumbing forward now, so probably not going to get as much of the ball, but still a damaging player, but probably not a great dream team option anymore, Brent Harvey. Drew Bolton, definitely more a super coacher than a dream teamer. In his last season, I'd imagine. Yeah, with the Swans being a month behind everyone else, probably going to get off to a slightly slow start, and so I'll give a miss to him. Taylor Walker, key forward in Dream Team. Like, he will kick a lot of goals, but I'm not going to get on Taylor Walker just because he's a key position player. Nick Nanonui, as mentioned, dual position ruck forward, but better suited to Super Coach. He's not as good a Dream Teamer as he is a Super Coach player, so I'll give a miss to Nick Nat. Nick Rewalt, once a great Dream Teamer, probably get a few good games out of him here and there, but a few injuries here and there, and getting on in years, so probably past his Dream Team best. Matthew Wright, great young player at the Crows. Definitely a unique pick that you couldn't go wrong with. Will definitely go up. And Dustin Martin, well, if you believe what Damien Hardwick says, he should be a lock in your Dream Team, and at that price, you couldn't complain. Both of them dual position mid forwards. So if you probably had both of those, you'd probably be in a very good position with your Dream Team, and also with Matthew Wright, probably with having a unique pick in your traditional Dream Team leagues. So continue on with some more premiums. Matthew De Boer was a surprising one when I was going through this list. Under Ross Lyon, he got a lot of points last year, and I remember a game at Fremantle Richmond at the MCG last year. He dominated in wet and slippery conditions. His kicking's horrible, so his disposal's not great, so keep away from him probably in something like Super Coach, or probably even maybe in the category-based Ultimate Footy, but in Dream Team doesn't matter where it goes as long as you get it, so keep an eye on him as a forward. Cyril Rioli, everyone loves watching Cyril Rioli play, but he fades in and out of games, doesn't get a lot of the footy at times, and also struggles to play out a full season, so give him a miss. Adam Goods, I went off him last year, but he stormed home, but yeah, he's probably at the end of his Dream Team life cycle as well. Now the next set of players, Sherrod Willingham, trampoline man, injured, so can't choose him as an option at the start of the season. Drew Petrie as a forward only this year rather than a ruck forward as he has been in previous years. Interesting. It'll be interesting to see how he goes with North Melbourne this year. I'm actually tipping North Melbourne to finish top 4. If they finish top 4, then no doubt Drew Petrie will have a good year. So keep an eye out on him. He's actually a smoky for the Coleman, I reckon, Drew Petrie, but he is a key forward. So Dreamteam cross against him, as with Jack Riewoldt, and as with Tom Hawkins. Whilst they'll have big games where they might score a bag here and there, generally they don't get enough of the what you call cheap possessions to be really too valuable in Dream Team. And on the bottom of that list is Greg Broughton at Gold Coast, who's a defender forward. A bit of a strange dual position play, but there are a few this year. Now he was the bane of many people last year at Fremantle as I think he was a midfield defender last year, and he had some games as soon as he got placed as that defensive forward for Fremantle, his Dream Team scoring dried up completely. But as soon as he went to the midfield or halfback, then he'd explode with a lot of points. So you'd hope that he'd be playing in defence for Gold Coast. I think I've seen a couple of games where he's done alright in the pre-season. He's at a very low price for what he potentially could output. But I think he'd probably be more value as in a defensive 4, as I mentioned in the defence podcast. He'd probably be better treated as a defensive premium rather than a forward one, just because of the lack of premiums available in defence in comparison to the forwards. So let's have a look at the mid-price players, the foot soldiers. Jason Paul-Pleasure I've got in here, but during the week he went into hospital with some ulcers with his stomach, because a lot of the painkillers he's been taking over the years for his shoulders have taken their toll on his. So probably not one to start the season with. But Sean Higgins I've got there. He could start off the year blazing, Sean Higgins, but then you'll know he'll do his ankle or do a hamstring or a quad or something. He's pretty brittle, Sean Higgins. So I hope he does well, but I'd never put him in my team just because of the injury concerns, not because of his ability. He's definitely got the ability, just injuries. Colin Sylvia, he's a very good player, Colin Sylvia. Well underpriced there. Will he give the output in 2013? Who knows? I always end up somehow with Colin Sylvia in my team every year. Even if I don't put him at the start, he always ends in there at the end of the year. So he's already on my watch list, but he won't be in my starting lineup. Lewis Jetta, I don't think he's a great dream teamer. He's a great player to watch, but probably not a great dream team option. Luke Bruce, he's one of those sneaky players that gets through kicking a few goals, and probably like the player that gets off the hook because you don't think he's got as much ability as he actually has. It'll be interesting to see whether he gets more attention this year at Hawthorn. I think he will. Also, I think Hawthorn might struggle a bit this year in comparison to last year. So I'm going to pass on Luke Bruce. And Lee Adams is I'm a big fan of Lee Adams. I think he'll be a good option as a mid-price forward. But there are probably better options which I'll come to very soon. Luke Dalhouse and Mitch Clark. Mitch Clark's injured. Luke Dalhouse is an exciting player, but probably not a great consistent dream team player. Travis Cloak's a key forward, so give him a miss. And Andrew Walker at Carlton looked completely lost in the grand final with the new systems at Carlton, so I'd probably give him a miss. We'll go through this list of players quickly. Alan Christensen, good player, but probably not a great dream team option for you, unless you want to use his dual position status for advantage, but probably not. Chris Mayne, a little bit of Sean Higgins about Chris Mayne. Gets injured a lot, seems to have ankle problems or something was going wrong at particular times just when he's in good form too. So it probably has to do with the way he plays his footy. He's pretty full on flying at the ball like a bit of a madman. He's pretty courageous player, but yeah, I probably can't rely on him too much. The Fremantle Pest, Hayden Ballantyne. He's had a really good pre-season actually. At that price, he's probably worth a great look in your dream team, if you can stand having him in your dream team. But at that price, I think he's a very good option. Benny McGlynn can have big games and then disappear. Seems, well, he missed the end of last year with that hamstring as well. To me, he just seems like that player that will just get injured a little bit here and there, miss crucial games, and he'd be a good unique for in this group of players in the mid-price forwards. But see how he's going at the start of the year. I think the Swans will have a pretty slow start to the year, even though they've got an easy draw at the start of the year. So Kurt Tippett I've got in there. Everyone knows he's missing the first half of the season, and he's also a key forward. But see if he gets a little bit of a ruck roll at Sydney to help out Mumford when he does play in the middle of the year. And he could actually be worth more than just that key forward role at Sydney, which means he may be of value come the middle of the year. Jack Darling, he's one of those players that everyone's, well, not I won't say everyone, that I'm expecting to explode at some point, some season. I mean, he's been a very good player, but he can also have some really low games where he can get 30 or 40 for a few weeks in a row. So maybe with Kennedy back in 2013, though, he may get freed up a little bit more this year, so he may get a more bit of a free roaming role across half forward, which may help him. Shane Edwards is really improving at Richmond, getting a lot more time in the midfield, and would be a viable option for anyone looking for a mid-forward in 2013. Stephen Martin looks revitalised at Brisbane, and is also maybe a cheaper option than Roughhead or Ryder as that ruck forward swap role that maybe you could use with Cox or Natanui, or a combination of any of those that I mentioned before. Eddie Betts looked very good for Carlton. He's had an excellent pre-season. But then again, if he's not scoring goals, I don't think he's getting enough of the footy to be a dream teamer. And Mark LeCrant's coming back from his knee injury. I usually give players coming back from knee a year before, well, they don't really hit that top form again. Usually coming back from traditional knee injuries for about a year. So I'm going to give him a miss in 2013, the Frenchman. So more foot soldiers here. Brandon Matera at Gold Coast is a very good player. He had the second year blues, I think, with most Gold Coast players last year. He's had a lot of foot trouble, and I think he's got foot trouble again. So give him a miss. Angus Monfries. I was looking at him at the very start of the pre-season when he got traded, but I haven't seen much of him in the pre-season for Port, and to be honest, I haven't seen him on an injury list or something or anything either, so I'm going to assume he's out injured for one reason or another. So but keep an eye on him. I think as a midfielder at Port, I think he'll do very well when he does come in. So he's one for a watch list later on in the year, I think. Devon Smith had a very good opening year for GWS, but probably at that price, it'd probably be a new set of rookies at a better value in 2013. Daniel G and Syracusa, probably at the end of his Dream Team career, once a great Dream Teamer, but now coming to the end. Stuart Cremiri, he's kind of a weird key forward. Cremiri, he's probably, it's hard to class. He doesn't look like he's a key forward, but he plays as a key forward. But then he can play also as a more mobile kind of forward as well, almost a little bit like a Ryan O'Keefe or something, I suppose. Just seems to roll around half forward and get some possessions, but still, I'm going to class him as a key forward, so put a no next to him. But having said that, he's worth an option, and he'd also be a unique pick for your team. Alan Didak is, I'd say he's almost finished. He's not in Collingwood's best 22, I don't think, anymore. So give him a miss. Robbie Nahas. Um, as a Richmond supporter, uh, can run hot and cold on Robbie Nahas' form, but um, at 338, he's probably he's no longer going to get the midfield time. I don't think that saw him get good points a couple of seasons ago. So probably give him a miss. Chris Dawes, key forward, also injured in the pre-season. No, Michael Hurley, key forward, key defender, constantly injured as well. Jeffy Gartlett at Carlton looks like he's going to have a very good year, and at $331 could be a great option for your dream team. Definitely put him high on the watch list for your mid forwards. I'll put a big star next to him as one of those pool of players that are definitely worth an option. And he'd definitely be a unique pick, I think, in 2013 at the start of the year. I think he's going to have a really, really, really good season and get a lot more of the footy than he has in the past. So looking at more midfielders, Michael Walters had a very good pre-season for Freo. So he might be worth a look. Aaron Sipos looks like he's going to get Brendan Goddard's role, so he could, and he has got a lethal foot on him. I've liked him ever since I saw him play out at Casey in his first year after he got drafted. He looked like a player to me, and I couldn't understand why. I think that was Ross Lyon's last year, why he wasn't getting a look in. His use by foot was fantastic. So he'd definitely be a great Supercoach player, I think. And if his form comes good, he'd definitely be one to jump on early with those trades you've got to use, perhaps as a mid-tier forward. Brett Ebert, 320 grand. Too hot and cold for me. He's like those one of those players that you just can't rely on, and then the next week he'll kick 6, and then he'll go missing for a month. So give him a miss. Jared Grant, old Spindle Shanks. I just don't think he's going to make it as an AFL footballer, quite Jared Grant. Give him a miss. Ian Callanan was well worth a look when he was a very cheap rookie in previous years, but not this year. Josh Jenkins, everyone's talking him up as the replacement for Kurt Tippett. I don't see that. I don't think he's going to do great work. Last year he was the third third banana in the mix up there in Adelaide, but this year, going one rung up the ladder, I think he's going to be exposed a little bit more. Jeremy Cameron, key forward, second year Blues, give him a miss. Sam Blease came good for the D's finally last year, very exciting player, but he's got a lot of work on his game, I think defensively still to do. So I expect him to not have as much freedom this year and to try and develop some other parts of his game. Really brilliant kick at the footy, Sam Blease, but probably not ready for a dream team pick yet. Bo Wilkes, actually Bo Meister now, the Meister. Had a good pre-season for the Saints, but he's a key forward, key defender, so I'm going to give him a miss. And same with Levi Casbolt. Carlton people talking him up, and he is busting packs well, but he's not getting a lot of the footy. And for super coaches, he kicks the ball like it's a sack of wheat, and you're never quite sure where it's going. So if you're sitting on the 50-metre line and he's at 60, be prepared to maybe end up with a Sharon in your beer. More foot solid, Nathan Bock, defend forward. I think we mentioned in defence the problems with his leg and his running gait and his ankles and stuff now that Guy McKenna mentioned, so he would be one for later in the season. Robbie Gray hasn't been seen yet in this pre-season, so he'll be a really good option to keep on your watch list to see where he comes in, probably towards the middle of the year from his knee injury. So, but as with Mark McGrath, he's probably not worth really having a look at until 2014, I don't think. And I'd expect his price to be around about the same. Josh Kennedy back for the Eagles, but is a key forward. He'll have big games where he kicks 7 and 8 and stuff, but probably few and far between. Aaron Cornelius had a good pre-season with Brisbane until the NRB Cup Grand Final when he was found out a bit. And I don't expect him to do anything that he hasn't already done in the AFL, which isn't much in 2013. Will Hoskin-Elliott is one of the better GWS players, I think, and at that price he could well be worth an option, but also be wary of GWS's rotation policy still with probably their first and second year players, so they can't play all these guys and give them all enough game time in key positions of the field where they'll get a lot of the footy. So, and with guys with Lockie Whitfield, I suppose when Dom Tyson comes back from injury and stuff, they'll need to try and get time into all those guys. So it'll be an interesting battle between the young players for midfield time in 2013, I think, and also I think GWS they'll experience a little bit of second year blues as probably all their tricks and stuff got exposed for the first time last year, and everyone will be more aware of them in 2013. Chris Knights was an interesting pickup for Richmond in the pre-season, but played the first few night games and then has disappeared since, and I think he's playing for Coburg tomorrow, so I don't think he's going to I don't think he's in the frame early on in the season for the Tigers' best 22, although I think he probably is in the best Tigers 22. So it'll just be a little bit of time, I think, for him to get his footy back, because he hasn't played a lot, had a lot of injuries, so he's probably one to be wary of, but one to watch also. Kieran Harper, he's definitely one to watch as well, but more from the point of view, everyone knows he can play and stuff, but his endurance is the big question mark over him, so whether or not he can play for long enough to get a lot of the footy is the question mark hanging over him, so he's probably one that's probably a couple of pre-seasons away, I think. Ricky Pettard got a little bit of footy off half-back, is a rookie though, so will need to be elevated before the season starts. If he plays across half-back, that kind of free Brett Delidio type of role, he might get a bit of the footy, but his form hasn't really been that great in the pre-season. It's been good, been surprisingly good actually, but probably not worthy of a genuine pick. Andrew Cracker came back late last season from that knee injury. At 243 is an interesting price, an interesting option if he can recap that form from 2011. So keep an eye out on him. He could be well underpriced there at 243. Patrick Karnesis, everyone that saw him in the pre-season grand final against Carlton would definitely say he's underpriced at 238. Probably not a great Supercoach player because his disposal's not fantastic, but I mean, he gets a lot of uncontested footy through the midfield, so keep an eye on him. Mark Nikoski, coming back from a lot of injuries last year, wasn't a good dream teamer beforehand, had one good year, but I'm going to give him a miss. Travis Varco, probably in that bracket with Karnesis and Cracker, although he does have the bonus of that dual position player, so he might be very worth having, and he is having a good pre-season. He'll get that free roll through the Geelong midfield, and Geelong are a much better player with Travis Varco in the team, giving them that little bit of speed and burst out of the midfield. So also a proven goal kicker, so keep an eye on him and definitely have him in strong consideration for your team in 2013. Daniel Menzel, knee problems, so probably want to give him a miss. Shannon Burns moved from Geelong to Melbourne. Should get a lot more opportunities. Was a good, very good VFL player and a small, medium forward type at Geelong in their premiership years, around the fringes of the team, but got those few premiership medallions. So I think he should get a bigger role at Melbourne, and his price should go up from 230. So he's probably a very good option at 230, and in a lower team like Melbourne, he should be a real bargain as a mid-priced forward in 2013. Liam Jones looks to have improved at the Doggies as he's kind of a tall forward, I guess, but he's more mobile than that. But he's definitely one to keep on a watch list. But he's probably more of a key forward, so I'm going to say no to Liam Jones, even though I'm impressed with what he's done and how he looks at the moment. John Butcher, key forward, very good player, but he's a key forward, so I'm going to give him a miss at Port, and I think Schultz is still the man down the forward line at Port Adelaide. Sean McKernan, a lot of Adelaide fans talk Sean McKernan up a bit. There are also those who bag Sean McKernan, but the interesting thing with Sean McKernan here is that he's a low-priced ruck forward option, which might give some flexibility to those who are using a strong dual position player focus in their team. So at 200,000, he's probably going to be the best option in terms of getting an active player in that role on your team. Josh Millington is an impressive young mid-sized kind of forward at Fremantle. Probably not quite ready yet, but I put him in there just because I think he is a really good player and one that will be playing at Fremantle for lots of years and playing well, I think. Jonathan Patton, key forward at Jedway West. You're probably thinking, why am I putting these key forwards in? I'm just putting them in because they are still options at these prices. And like I said, eventually there'll be an exception to a rule like Lance Franklin. Jonathan Patton might be the next Jonathan Brown, which could make him an option as well. Now we'll go through the rookies. Hayden Crozier at Fremantle, probably underpriced. Probably not going to be a great dream teamer, but he is underpriced there. He played a lot of footy last year, but played a lot off the subs bench, so his scores were always lower than they would have been if he was playing for 4 quarters. Ended off the season last year with glandular fever, is back now. It'll be interesting to see how he goes at Fremantle. He's on my watch list. Jake Stringer, I think, was one of the best players from last year's draft, and he's ready to go for football. Came back from that horrible broken leg, and then rolled his ankle early in his first NAB Cup game, but I think just because of his size and bulk and the way he play through the midfield and as a forward, as a key forward actually, but can play as a genuine midfielder. At 165, he's a definite option. He'd be unique, probably because people are shying away from taking the risk with his broken leg. But if you're going to take him, I think he could end up a masterstroke in 2013. Sam Mays was drafted by Brisbane, probably not going to get a lot of time this year with guys like Brent Maloney going up into the midfield in Brisbane, and he's behind guys like Redden, Rockcliffe and all those guys, so he'll probably play bits and pieces role here and there as he gets development in his first year, so probably not a great option. Joe Danaher, Essendon, he's going to be a star, but first season, skinny kid, 200 centimetre key position player, probably only going to play 10 games or 12 games, I think, this year, I reckon. So probably give him a miss. Troy Menzel, Carlton, knee problems already similar to his brother. So he's a bit behind the 8 ball in his pre-season at Carlton, so probably won't play much, I don't think. Brent Staker coming back from a knee injury at Brisbane. He's in the middle of his 6-week injury period, so he probably won't be back to round 1 or 2. He's never been a fantastic dream team or a super coacher, but at 132,000, you know he's going to play at least. And as a defensive forward, you might be able to use him as a in tandem with a guy like Greg Broughton, so you can swap those two whenever you need cover in either the defence or in the forwards, wherever they may be. So there's an option. Brent McCaffrey from Collingwood, again a player coming back from a knee injury, but at such a low price. Earlier on I said wary of players coming back from knee injuries, but at these prices down low, they can only go one way up rather than being at like a 250, 280 where they're probably going to get stuck. I think Brent McCaffrey and Brent Staker have both got upside even with their knee injuries to say that you'll make money out of them, even if you have to trade them off, and they're probably guaranteed in that first 22 a lot more than a young rookie might be, and probably more able to play 22 games than a young rookie might be. Josh Simpson is a talented player from Fremantle that I've added to this list. I don't think he'll play a lot of time in 2013, but he will play a lot of footy in the future. And I think he'll play more than 3 games for Fremantle this year, so he's definitely worth a rookie list spot up forward, at least on your watch list, and maybe bring him in, even if he doesn't start the season, a bit later on in the season, when he gets his 3 games up to do some trades and make some money. Sam Rowe had a disappointing NRB Cup finals game, coming off the pine late in the game. He's a key forward ruck, but he is a dual position ruck forward, so he may be useful at that price as maybe your last position on your forwards bench that you don't intend to use, but give you the flexibility to maybe bring Dean Cox into your forward line. Swap Rowe out, put him on your ruck bench, and maybe play a ruck combination such as Leuenberger and Curry, or Stephen Martin and Curry in your rucks, and use Cox as a forward. And you can do that if you've got Sam Rowe as that kind of pawn to move about as you need. Jake Need, not much of Jake Need, but he looks like he's going to get a fair bit of game time this year for Port, and he's been doing well. Also a dual position player, so he is highly valuable down there, I think at 108,000, and is a definite bench option, rookie bench option for for most Dream Teamers. I think there's not many like him floating around in 2013 that'll give you some options. Tom Lee at St Kilda, he's a key forward. I don't think, even at this price, I don't think it's really worth it, but I mean, he didn't have, whilst he had a good year in the Waffle, he probably didn't have great Dream Team numbers in the Waffle, so probably use that key forward rule on Tom Lee and give him a miss. Jed Lamb, not sure where he's sitting at the Swans at the moment, not sure where he's going to get time, but there are a lot of players on the edge of, well, you could say the edge of retirement probably, just purely based on their age, with Jude Bolton and, I mean, Jared McVeigh is still in excellent form, but a lot of those midfieldish, half-forwardish type of players are probably, like Ryan O'Keefe for example, are probably on the edge, so he's probably will start getting games this year, but probably 2014 will probably be a really good chance for Jed Lamb to start to shine a bit. Rory Atkins was Adelaide's top draft pick after their Kurt Tippett saga, but probably don't expect him to see a lot of game time this year. Ben Kennedy will probably get a fair few games for Collingwood this year. He's an exciting player, and he's also played in the SANFL, so he's played against men before, so I think that gives him an advantage a bit over other draftees. But we'll probably play as a small forward and half forward rather than midfield, so keep an eye on him though. I think he's a really good player and was actually one of the steals of the draft in terms of where he went in the draft, so keep an eye on him. Sam Dwyer, mature age VFL player that's got drafted by Collingwood, 89,000. He's been playing a lot of games in the pre-season. It'd be interesting to see if he's picked in round 1. If he's picked in round 1 at 89,000, hard to pass up Sam Dwyer, I think. So let's have a look at the possible lineup out of all of that. So at the moment, 3 premiums are going for Lance Franklin. He's like the Dane Swan of the forward line, as I mentioned, and I think he's almost a must-have for any team. Tom Rockcliffe I've backed in as going to come back as a good year, as he played a little bit forward last year, so as a midfielder more in 2013. I think he's going to go up. And Dustin Martin is having an excellent pre-season through the midfielders, fit as a fiddle, and I think he's going to take his game up one notch in 2014, so he's definitely underpriced. But will pump out premium worth scores, I think, in 2013. Now, I put in Chris Knights in here earlier on in the season, but I've actually replaced him with Travis Varco now. Or, as I mentioned, Patrick Karnezis. I think that's probably the best. Those are 2 better options than Chris Knights. I did this presentation a little bit earlier on in the season, in the pre-season, so excuse putting Knights in there. But yeah, definitely Varco and Karnezis would be better options there. Then Cracker coming back from Collingwood, I think he'll hit good form again, and Shannon Burns getting more of a chance at Melbourne is a brilliant option as a middle price player in the forward line. And then at rookie prices, even though he's not a rookie, Brent McCaffrey is excellent. And then depending on your strategy, I've put Rowe in there. You could also put in Ben Kennedy if you've got a mid-forward strategy. But as I've got Dean Cox in the ruck, putting Rowe in that forward line gives me some flexibility to use Cox as a forward should one of my mid-priced forwards not do as well as I first thought. And also that's also reliant on Dan Curry, I suppose, playing well for North in the ruck, or actually playing for North in the ruck. So that may all change depending on how selections pan out early on in the season. So that's it for the forwards episode. Next episode we'll be looking at the motherload of midfielders in 2013. So many midfielders to choose from. You almost can't get midfielders wrong, to be honest. So we'll have a look at that, and thanks for listening. This the links to all our web nodes, website, Twitter, Facebook, iTunes, all there. Get on them, and we'll see you soon with the Midfielders podcast. Thanks for listening.